I was excited to learn with return to stocks the other day. You know how like sometimes we'll have like 2 or 3 return to stocks of the same drug, and it'll be like, no, you can't use any of these. If you scan the stock bottle and then scan the return to stock, sometimes it will let you use the return to stock. Sometimes it will still pop up as, no, return to stock can't be used for this. But sometimes you can get rid of your return to stock bottles that way.
Okay.
It doesn't work every time, but worth a try.
Absolutely.
But 60% of the time, it works 100% of the time.
Exactly.
That's how statistics work.
In it. It's got real bits of panther in it. That's how you know it's good.
It's as long as it's not a panther like my little panther out here that has the baby scream.
We've got a baby hunting panther. Nice. Quick question. Empress?
Yeah.
The world, the star, the sun, the lovers, the ace of cups, or the 4 wands?
Sun is usually pretty good, but why not the fool or the hanged man? That's my favorite.
That is not part of this particular tarot-inspired scent set. It's a scent variety pack. And they mixed scents that are signify certain tarot.
Okay.
I have only thus far managed to enjoy the world, the sun, and the Ace of Cups. So, casting it to you, what scent shall we have in the background? You?
Empress.
I was just about to say that. I am a very much fan of the Empress.
I posted my answer.
So overall, outside of our dear Lucio going to work for an unofficial fraternal order who deals in pharmacological supply needs, how is everyone?
I am good. I successfully ignored a message from my DM asking me if I could go work at another store after I had already worked at another store today.
Excellent work.
Multiple locations, same.
Right. I mean, to be fair, the store that she asked me to go to is like literally around the corner from our apartment. But
our comfort. Do you really want to know what your neighbors need in their life? What creams you've seen them apply?
I mean, it's fine. I don't really know any of the neighbors here. I know a couple of them by sight because they always sit on the steps and smoke when are in the way when I'm trying to leave or come home.
Hey,
but you know them so much better.
You know that brothel down there rotates girls every 3 days.
Like the one that has Cash App me at this address or username because it's my 21st birthday and buy me a shot. Literally on one of the cars parked downstairs.
Well, it's always nice to be neighborly and buy unknown persons alcohol from somewhere, or give them the money so that they can't buy alcohol. Not that they have to buy alcohol. Yeah. They could maybe buy perfume or.
I didn't even buy my oldest kid, right? I didn't even buy my oldest kid a shot on her birthday, so.
Well, certain traditions are traditions for a reason. I did not have that opportunity. That came several years later, and I had far too much experience with properly carousing with liquid courage.
No, I have had the opportunity to drink with my child.
Well, delirious. The tradition is well, and it meant something.
Yeah, it was at they were playing a show opening for Jaded's band, and she's like, "I want you to drink with me." Okay. She was terrified that I was not nearly as drunk as she was, and we drank a lot. I'm like, well, honey, I'm like twice your age, so I have a little more experience. A little bit.
That is sadly not the way it went for me. I was the babysitter that night, but it worked out fine overall.
Yeah.
That was the same night our creepy stalker came out, and when she was coming off the stage and I was getting on the stage, we stopped and hugged each other, and he was like, "Who's that?" And she's like, "That's my dad." And then within 5 minutes, he was gone.
Yeah.
That's always a good thing. A good job pass forward.
So she worked at the time at a strip club up there where she was living, and he was one of her regulars. And he saw a flyer with her in the show and decided he was going to come watch her. Okay.
That sounds like a healthy idea.
Right. So I was over sitting with one of her friends at a table while she was playing, and he was getting ready to set up his stuff. And he comes over. And he's like, I will buy you a drink if you just let me through to plug my phone in. I'm like, you don't have to buy me a drink. You can plug in your phone. I don't care. And he's like, she's really good, isn't she? It's like, I wasn't expecting her to be so good. I'm like, yeah, that's my daughter. She's like, oh, I know her from work. She's my barista because she also worked at the Target Starbucks. And I'm like, I just gave him that look like, barista, sure.
Whatever you say, man. Just move along.
He was so uncomfortable finding out that her parents were there.
How dare you have parents? How dare!
Right? How dare you have parents that support you?
That is a rarity. It must be said. Like, the support is there, but to see it is such a rarity, which shouldn't be. It's ridiculous. And speaking of ridiculous, lovely segue that it is. The insanity of our real world will take a small backseat to the insanity of our characters' world. We left in the middle of a very tense, no more tense than usual for this particular coterie, but we left in the middle of a scene. We left in the middle of a moment. We left in the middle of perhaps justice being dished out, revenge being served, far warmer than it should, and a mass of confliction colliding with itself in this moment, in the space where we left. There was the all too mortal Lucia. There was the all too internally and emotionally, spiritually bloody Hestia. There was the raising power that was Sophia in the afterglow of having danced with over 1 million different milliamps of voltage from the spiritual world. There was the physical mountain and occasionally devastatingly handsome Silvio charging to protect Sophia and by extension her associates. And there was Miriam coming to grips with the spiritual stalker by several degrees removed. Dread pirate standing there in the doorway. Those eyes that she knows what it was like to be looked on by them lovingly. She knows what that smile could do to certain people's emotional state. She knew what having the full focus of the weight of their presence could do, and how it could move you, how it could give you wings to fly, soar emotionally. And here he was in all of his glory of his former life, in his time of piracy, active physical piracy, trotting the boards of ships, raiding and plundering, and being the dashing pirate of fiction in all of its less than fictional glory. That's where we left our closure. So, are there any questions, suggestions, hypotheses, or corners we need to round off?
Okay, so Hestia felt that the thing with the blade happened. Has Lucio ended up on the other side of him, or is Lucio still too close to Nash, like swinging wise?
Oh, Lucio's definitely far too close, but Lucio is past where his focus seems to be. His focus seems to be in this room, as if something about Lucio gives him a temporary reprieve of that focus. Whatever that could be, whatever has changed within him, leaves him just at the periphery of importance. Nash and all of that very dead, very long gone rage and loss seems to be focused on the Kindred in this room. Even Silvio's massive bulk and speeding form is less than a second thought, less than a wind-tossed strand of hair. It means nothing.
I had given you my thing earlier today that was full of camaraderie and best intentions.
Always the best of intentions. Well, that is not that bad. It's lavender and honeysuckle, so it's a good mix. So I take it that there are no further questions. There are no moments that we need to touch base on.
I might have one question, which is, you said the wording of Sophia's, I guess, curse or whatever it was, is why Lucio is currently mortal. Is there an explanation that I can get for that? Like how exactly that works?
Off the cuff, without a roll, and taking a quick gander at Lucio's dots, the first thing that will come to mind is that she asked for an ending of Don Castiglione. That included all things connected with him, or fruits of him. And there is a statistical probability that a mortal in the midst of Kindred would, in fact, be dealt with fairly shortly, thereby fulfilling that faction of it. But for instance, and here's the thing that would easily come to mind, while making a Kindred mortal and bleeding in the midst of a pack of Kindred is usually a death sentence. What about mortals on the average day? What might end them as you think about how far flung the fruit of Castiglione's tree reaches? There are several members of the Tory that even way back when Lucio was but a child were connected with the Don in the most illicit of means, in the illicit of terms. There were several officers in the neighborhood who were reputed to be members of the family, and not in the criminal empire way, but literally the family. There are several cousins that Lucio has grown relatively close to over the last few years who could be easily connected in one shape, fashion, or form with the continuation of the Castiglione name. There are streams, and rivers of children, both actually and supernaturally, that he has fostered. There are puppets that his hand still is, well within. There are organizations that directly profit from him. All of those things would be put in the most simple and direct jeopardy possible, so that by the end of this period, whatever that flow of energy was, based on the sacrifice determines the timeline, would meet their end and be destroyed.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And so, if we have no further questions, I'd like to say thank you all. I have belabored and beat on the value of play and what that has meant for me often enough that I would and believe that you guys understand how much it actually does mean. The investment of our time, our energies, and our thoughts. We could be literally anywhere in the world, and often many of us are in our day-to-day lives. We deal with a lot. But in this small time shared, we have the opportunity to escape all of the boundaries of our lives and all that entails. We give into that often lost ability to play, to enjoy ourselves, to be the kids that we once were, mentally at least. Extend our lives by proxy of exploring all of these many dark themes that these characters interact with. So, again, very heartfeltly would like to thank you all for this time and all the time that you guys have shared with me and with each other over the last few months, over the last few years. It means a significant amount to me. And without further delay, without further ado, I'd like to say that this is officially Soup City Sins, Season 15, Epilogue. Dreaming the Solstices night away. When we last left our coterie, well, there's no real way to not play up the fact that hell has come to Earth. And not in any over-aggrandizing statement of that aphorism that's been trotted out. Because there's one surety, even for those of us who are atheists, we don't believe in the Abrahamic idea of heaven and hell and all of those things and sorts in between. But we are sure that in our heart of hearts that for a life as wrapped wholly in immorality, a life and existence wholly devoid of actual care for any living, undead, formerly living entity, that the dread pirate Nash would most assuredly end up in his just deserts, a lake of ever-ending fire or torment, or whether it's the Elysian fields, the land of Hades, where he's consistently tortured, much like Sisyphus. We are sure that that would be where such a soul, such an entity would reside. And they have escaped whatever their just deserts are in the other world, in the other side of the veil, the other side of the shroud. And they have returned here with hate in their heart, with pain on their brow, and a rage to be unfurled and unfettered against the coterie. So yes, hell has come to Earth. Hell has been unleashed. And then resides in the form of Nash, who has every intention of unleashing a lifetime of selfish pain on the coterie. The first victim of the first person, the first entity tasting of that pain is in fact Hestia, which bears some small measure of no. Hestia, who has over the last few months, over the last few whiles, has grown further from their instinctual belief and faith in the hereafter, that there is a balancing of this life and this world, and that there are just deserts for those who have lived justly, and all of those things that come with that idea. To see it, to feel it, does things, because faith is belief even in the absence of factual proof. And here is factual proof that there is a balancing of things, that there is a mysterious rhyme and reason to things, because having tasted of Nash's blade, she is very sure that there is only one place, one realm, where that much pain, that much vengeance for a life ill-lived can be visited upon anyone. And here is factual, actual proof that the idea that the cosmos, the spirits, the God, the force of the angels, balances all things eventually. And yes, your grand total of damage was what in the last episode? Do you remember?
I think it was. There was no aggravated. I think it was all superficial. It was like 4 superficial.
Okay, so that's 4 superficial willpower that you took. You took in one hit from this approximation of their life, and having to relive all of those bad, worst moments that they've pushed off on others. All of those incidentals and accidental travesties against mankind, kindred kind, and the world at large. You are able to feel each of those moments blazing through your spiritual self. You are able to feel the balance of that pain that he has had to endure because of all of the pain that he has incidentally, accidentally, and selfishly wreaked on the world during his existence. It is a blow, to say the least. And luckily, Hestia is quite willful. She has an intestinal fortitude that has allowed her to survive moments that would have permanently broken others. Again, the shelter has made it a habit, has made it a hobby, has made it an avocation to do the impossible. And without fail, they keep putting themselves in situations where the impossible is the only way out. And experiencing the pain of his existence, most would have been obliterated. They would be drooling fools in puddles of their own recriminations. Yet Hestia is able to parse the situation. Lucio just a few feet past him. Silvio moving to put himself bodily between the dread pirate and Sophia. Miriam, there's a bit of starstruck adoration there. It's nothing that anyone who had not spent time with her would notice. It was nothing that most passers-by would recognize as anything, or maybe they might call it shock. But having seen and having been there when Miriam actually enjoyed themselves with her artwork, having been there when Miriam solved a problem and was able to get to the other side, having been there when she cracked the nut of all of that information that has fallen into your lap, you know what she looks like when she is pleased. And there's something internal going on, and that is where she is. And then there's Sophia. All of the dark shadows of her existence drawing back so that you can see who she is in this moment. And she very much is a pale beauty, and for this it's just Tuesday. Because in this moment there's a lot of moving parts. And here stands a floats, exists, corporeates, a specter that would normally cause others' blood to freeze. And Sophia looks as if this is just another day, and he is another person coming in for a pedicure. So in alphabetical order, what is it that we are up to?
Hess kind of skids to a stop after seeing that he's not paying any attention to Lucio anymore and that Lucio's sort of out of danger. Realizing she's more in danger, feeling that flight through her, she backs up just a little bit, but not enough for him to be able to swing for her again. Like she's staying under his guard, looks up at him in his face, and, oh, so we want to play with knives then, huh? I got you. And she pulls out her spelled blade and goes in for a stab.
So gritting her teeth through the emotional pain of the four superficial willpower points just sapped away, Hestia decides to dive headlong into the furnace that is all of that hate and enmity. Her goal clear to measure for measure return unto the dread pirate Nash all of the pain that he has unleashed on the world and seeks to unleash on Cody. Lucio, bloodied, broken, but not beaten and not defeated. You've been in worse situations before, and that has never been more true. Because in a very odd balance of situations, a mirror almost to how you died. You died facing the undead. You died facing the formerly living Kindred. And here you are, very close to that moment again, facing something that has expired. Once again, your existence may be snuffed out by a dead thing that is mindless in its pain and its own grief, driven insane by all of those urges, all of those moments wasted. So bloody. Watching Hestia dive headlong into the maw that is this spiritual manifestation. But what is it that Lucio would like to do?
So the first thing that Lucio would try to do is, just out of instinct, try to mend himself. Probably not fully realizing that he can't. And when he realizes that's a futile effort, from what he knows about spirits and what he's learned from Sophia, they all have a fetter that can control them or hurt them if you damage it. So the best he can do in this situation, given that there's nothing he can do to physically harm it, is to try and see if the fetter is somewhere close by that he could potentially get rid of it. Basically, his focus right now is dealing with this ghost because it's currently hunting Hestia.
Okay. We will give that a quick in the moment. Unless, of course, you're going to take time to do so. It's going to be your wits plus the average of your investigation and occult to make an educated guess. Not quite a random pick, but it would be an educated guess based on the information that he has. If he's going to do it quickly. If you would like to take time, however, it would be your intelligence plus the average of your investigation and occult, but you'd get a +1. However, it would be too late to do anything this particular round.
So if I want to do it quickly, it's wits and the average?
Yes.
Okay. I'll do the quickly then. The average of the two would be 3, so I get... Do I include hunger in this roll?
No, you do not. Holy shit. Alright. Alright. There are some times when fate conspires with you instead of against you to watch the excitement that the chaos that is your life may bring into their existence. Fate clearly loves an underdog, and they consider Lucio to be just that in this situation. There's no logical way. There's no realistically measurable way to denote how he's able to make the leap that he does, but it is 100% sound. Since Nash's death, there's been but one member of your coterie that has not had any interactions of their own accord with the supernatural, with the denizens of the other world. They have not seen the sights and vistas that have been open to you all. They have been unmoved by all of the spiritual malfeasance wreaked and wrought by Castiglione and their associates. They have been all but invisible when it comes to matters of that mystical aim and path. And not for nothing, it strikes a chord with you because it reminds you of your sister. You, for the entirety of her life, have kept her safe as you could and protected and insulated and isolated from the various criminal members that lived and abounded in your existence. They lived in your neighborhood. They were neighbors. You knew what they did, but you were able to keep your sister free of their influence and knowing quite what she was in the midst of while growing up. The only way for someone as blithely unknowing and unseeing as Miriam to be so well insulated and isolated is because something or someone is already working to keep them from noticing. That sounds specifically and suspiciously like a haunting. From having dealt with Forcipulus, you are aware that spirits, living and formerly never living, are very selfish about those they feed upon. They are very selfish about those things that matter to them. They will do what they can to protect, even if it's just protecting their chosen hunting ground. And there's Miriam, safely inured, safely isolated. A strange look as she stares in the direction of Nash, and you are sure that he hasn't corporeated enough that anyone without the touch can see him, yet she seems to be just doing just that for the first time ever. There is something or someone in her keeping her mostly blind and safe, but that someone or something is very much connected with Nash.
Okay. I'm honestly not sure what to do with this information because Lucio's ability to affect the supernatural is very hindered right now. But he will try and make his way over to Miriam to see if maybe there's something like on her, like a possession that she recently obtained or something that might be affecting this. Oh. Ah. Okay, so with that knowledge in mind, Lucio is still going to head over to Miriam with a different plan in mind.
So mustering his strength, getting his feet beneath him, and there's a saying in football: someone running downhill to simplify their speed and their direction, their forcefulness of getting from point A to point B as quickly as possible. Lucio summons all of his intestinal fortitude and realizes that it sucks being alive, because he is able to inhale, he's able to scent and smell in full what it's like to be in such a closed space with all of these dead things, all of these members of his coterie. He's able to intuit how wrong it feels on his skin. He is able to smell the iron of his own blood in a way that does not make it smell like a buffet. It does not make it smell like a home-cooked meal. It makes it smell like a mess. Like he's a leaking sieve. He is a wreck and a ruin. And it is offensive to him because he's never been in this state before. Not quite in this state before. Not as he is now. The effort of his breathing causing his ribs to hurt. The pain from lack of muscle growth and usage is a foreign thing to him. It's as if for the first time in several years, he has woken up from the longest sleep that he has ever had, and his limbs are responding much the same way. There's a tingling in his fingertips from the sudden flow of blood. There's the comforting and disconcerting feel of his heart beating in his chest with the effort pumping more blood through him. And most egregiously, there is the decided lack of speed. The difference in speed for what he is and where he was is phenomenal. It is the difference between night and day, very figuratively and literally both at the same time. Didn't realize how quickly he moved just as little as a few minutes ago. Just dipping past the dread pirate Nash as Hesh just sets blade to blade, as it were, and sliding past, nearly bumping off Silvio to get closer to Miriam takes far longer than it should. And speaking of far longer than it should, far more involved than it should be, there's something hugely offensive about uninvited guests that is only compounded by uninvited guests who are willing, able, and determined to make as large a mess as possible. This is a guest, a stranger to your home, to your hospitality, who has every intentions of putting their feet, their mud-soaked feet, on your white couch. They have every intentions of kicking every pillow. They have every intention of tracking as much of the outside inside. And they're loud and ingracious, and they are uncaring. And that's what you feel looking at the dread pirate Nash as Silvio intersperses himself between you and this offending, uninvited guest. So, Sophia, what is it that you are attempting to do?
I believe I am attempting to do the thing we discussed earlier. Or that I mentioned in DMs earlier, anyway.
As a side note, did you need a roll for me for my attack or no?
Not just yet. Reading everybody's actions in order. I'm going to circle back to Miriam because there is something very, very pressing about this moment. Something potent. If that is all that you are doing in this moment, with so many people distracted by the appearance of the dread pirate, channeling that would be a skill test to which everyone else would need to roll versus. So, Sophia, I need you to roll your because it is instinctual. It's going to be your manipulation plus oblivion plus 1 is your roll. And then everyone else present will roll their resolve and composure, or resolve plus either blood, sorcery, or occult versus.
What is happening?
You guys are preparing to say goodbye to the frying pan.
Sweet.
You said resolve and composure, right?
Yes, or resolve plus blood sorcery, or resolve plus occult. Holy crap. All right. Well, folks, you all will use those die pool versus a difficulty of 5. Remember, you will need to get one higher to be successful. Well, never mind, Lucio. Carry on.
Oh, well.
All of this spiritual mumbo jumbo is not quite up your alley. We need to get something. Holy crap. All right. Well, while that battle of wills is happening, while the strength of the stone is calling to that which you most despise, while the stone, and it's very important that.
My +1.
You forgot your +1 in a row.
So that's one more.
Yep, that means Lucio ties, so Hestia is free of the influence of it, but you will still feel the effects of it. In this moment, as everything is swirling towards its denouement, as everything is moving towards the apex of whatever this moment will be, you can feel the stone. And why I'm saying the stone is because it has, or is developing, its own presence. And that presence is crawling around inside your heart, not your mind, not your thoughts, not what most people point to when they think of themselves, but your heart, the weight of your emotions and your feelings about the world in general, but more specifically about Ash. All of the many things and the messes that he left across several cities, but specifically all the messes he left across the Chicagoland area. All of the lives that he bent toward his continued existence. All of the broken-hearted parents left out there in the world because of his actions, because of his careless, selfish actions, his predatory leanings, his will to survive no matter what, and no matter how many moral, ethical, familial bonds he was willing to cross, break, and otherwise desecrate to continue existing. That is what the stone is latching onto. That is what is being stroked and fanned like a fire in you. That is what's being drawn out as if you all were maple trees, and there's a very lovely syrup to be made. And while you feel this, Hestia, there's a part of you, there is a savage monstrosity that exists in your chest, your beast, which normally is able to whisper quietly and subtly and bend you towards its will without you realizing it. Because if you realize it, you are able to fight it. You are able to claw through to some semblance of yourself that is divisible from it. Yet in this moment, both of you all feel the enmity inherent in the stone's presence in your being. And you begin walling yourself up all of your anger and focus, your drive to succeed from your living days, forming a potent wall around yourself, hardening the shell of your heart to anything else's perceptions. It is a terrible thing to be devoid of emotion, to deny yourself that heat, that warmth of your being. That is what Hestia, in this moment, along with the assistance of her beast, does. For Lucio, Miriam, how do you feel about Nash?
Before I answer, is it too late to roll willpower? I don't know if I can in this case.
Normally, yes, you would be able to roll willpower, but it is past, unfortunately.
Okay. In that case, Lucio hates Nash. And I believe he said it several times, at least in his internal monologues, he's made the efforts to be as unlike Nash as possible.
But he's such a fun guy. Some of the best partying in all the city. Miriam.
Oh, when it comes down to it, I would say Miriam, separate of any spiritual influence to the contrary, pities him. You know, he's had this long life. He's had so much opportunity to do good. And that just kind of fell short. And he never really got the love that he thought he deserved. And that's just sad.
Oh, that's surprisingly kind of you to not embrace the incidental, accidental, blithely unaware predatory nature that led him to divest families of their children for centuries. Surprisingly understanding. And there's the very real facet and touch of the mortal and human Miriam in that thought. The same Miriam that thought the best way to help would be to become a doctor. The idea of helping at a cost to themselves. All of that is coming due. Because the truth of the matter is, the bloody wreck that is rushing in your direction smells like lunch. It smells like it's been a very long morning, and finally the company is doing something good for you and not doing a simple, stupid pizza party, but actually are paying for lunch. They're buying you whatever you want for your lunch, and they're delivering it to your desk. All the better so you can keep working through lunch, but still, it's what you wanted. It's not a pizza party to explain your lack of a raise. It is surprisingly touching that they would deliver you a meal. And then there's the fact that underneath it all, separate, of course, from her natural, normal understanding of things, is the presence that has made her a home. Her thoughts, her dreams, her waking moments slipping in between things, making itself more and more and more permanently at home in her. There's a thought there, something a little unkind, but there's still very much a thought that this is a foreign presence in her being that's found a way to slip between moments and make of her a home and ways to continue existing. There's no way to not see that as very much in line with what Nash has been doing to the rest of the world. Not for their better interest, not for their actual love or their betterment. No, for himself, he continued and was willing to continue doing all of the things that, well, destined him to end up in the place that he ended up in. And that presence is doing the same with Miriam as a whole. It is sacrificing bits and pieces of her wakefulness. It's sacrificing bits of her peace and comfort and supplanting it with its own. Because even consciously pitying Nash, she knows what it's like to be loved by him. Not in that cheap, easily attainable physical way, but to have the light and radiance of his smile directed at her. To know what his touch can do and the warmth that it stirred. So with that thought, with that feeling resting on her shoulders, what is it that Miriam is intending to do?
Well, Miriam is not much of a fighter. And she is competent enough and has seen this beautiful dance so many times in her dreams. She's going to attempt to replicate it. Drop into 4th position, reverence, and then start the dance. Trying just to distract.
That being the case, with so many things moving at once, Miriam, you need to roll your charisma and performance or your dexterity and performance. Your DC is 2. Your DC is nothing more than an emotional battery at this point. Sophia, having gathered the difference of 4, 5, 6, what is it that you are attempting to do with all of that potent charge towards, or how are you planning on utilizing that additional +6 in your next action against Nash? And Hestia, while your blade is ceremonial, it is not designed to cut through spirit flesh, but your bonus of saving from having your emotions drained by the stone will give you a +1 to a dexterity or strength attack against the ghost. Which are you aiming for? Skill and flaying skin, or are you just trying to ram it home as hard as you possibly can?
It's actually pretty even. They're both a 3 to start. The only thing I guess that would make difference is the melee part. So they're both about the same. They get a +1 from melee with knife work too, so it's pretty much about the same. Strength. I'll go with strength.
Okay. So you are driving your blade into the central mass of this spiritual corporeality that is the Dread Pirate Nash. You will be rolling your strength plus blood sorcery +1 to affect the very spirit stuff that he is.
That was a 2.
Yes, I see that. Very nicely done. And Sophia, yourself, is that what is it that you're going to do with this ray of death that is in your hands?
Well, operating far outside the rules at this point.
Yes. Right out on the hoary edge.
We're right out on the rule of cool aspect now. She would want to use this wraith that has invaded her home as a battery to siphon this energy through and strike out at Daria.
All right. Well, that being the case, would you be so kind as to roll with your additional die, your additional bonus, your manipulation and oblivion with your bonus die, and I'll roll for the Dread Pirate Nash slashing out and slashing hither and thither, trying to split someone from their mowing to their gullet and resist the very real tantalizing effect that someone mimicking the last wholesome moment in his existence. The last.
So this was with 6 extra dice?
Yep.
Wow. Okay. We'll rouse manipulation just because she's determined.
Feel the power coursing through you.
And as always, the beast decides to take his pound of flesh. Just like Uncle Sam, it wants its cut off of top. Otherwise, you will pay additional fines for the next few years. And in this moment, there is a delicious, very much human flesh bag dripping its life juice all over your carpet. Easily digestible.
It's a good thing she has a large willpower pool because I'm just blowing through it tonight.
Oh, you know what they say. This is the way the world ends. Not with a bang, but with a whimper. The most ostentatious whimper you have ever seen, but still a whimper. As people sit down for their family meals and watch the asteroid rush towards the planet, obliterating every idea that could ever come to fruition. And as Hestia trades blades with the dread pirate, and he attempts to nod and failing along the way, watch as his childer, the last bit of goodness that was left to him, the last unselfish, the last humane and almost decent aspect of him. That performance that was an audition and a end of things. No longer was she the flesh and blood mortal child. She was fully in her strength. And watching the dance and attempting to fight things out, he ceases to be. As Hestia's blade plunges into the center of all of that hate-given temporary flesh, passing through it as Lucio slides just close enough to almost cause a misstep, to almost throw off her concentration. But that which lies in the heart of her remained, driving him forward. This was a dance that literally took a year in practice. This was a dance that determined her fate. And Miriam gives herself completely over to it in that moment. As Nash and Hestia meet, him fading into nothingness, the heat of him ceasing to be, the absence of life that is the space where he inhabited, gone. And there's a part of Sophia the one bit that is aware as to what was actually done. There are things, killing, ending things, murder. That's all fine and good. Even murder of a spiritual essence. Because at the end of the day, it's all part of the same unending, infinite line. Like, even spirits that die, they get fed into the maelstrom, they fall into the oblivion, and they're recycled and they're put back into the existence. They continue existing. Like, there is no true end normally. And this is not a normal situation. This is not an everyday, ordinary murder. This is not an everyday, ordinary ending of things. Literally taking all of the emotions directed at him, caused by him, and sacrificing that along with all of his existence towards one goal of wiping out another soul removes him from that infinite line. There's no deeper, darker hell that he might fall into. There's no further reaches of the dreaming or the umbra or the other side of the veil or the shroud that he will ever find himself in. There is the absence of every facet of continued existence for him. There's nothing. He was nothing. He will never ever be anything ever again. Sophia is the only person in the room, the only living, unliving entity that is aware that that 1 in a million happening did. Permanently erased, permanently shunted from existence. The dread pirate Nash is gone. And Don Castiglione's empire in the land of the dead has grown stronger by the arrival of one general willing to sacrifice the entirety of the world for their own existence.
Having done that last thing after already being kind of spent with all the energy that she's been channeling and focusing and all that, she will probably drop the stone in the box and collapse to the floor. All dramatic like.
There's a cost to everything. There's a price that comes due. And there's no saying, well, fairly new saying, that there are those who know the cost but not the value. And in this moment, Sophia has paid the cost without intuiting the true value. And that true value is that you have unmade Mama Cass. That value is that you have strengthened Don Castiglione in his place in the oblivion by giving him fodder, by giving him energy, by giving him another soul that he has already manipulated several hundred times before. A potent, primed entity. And you have thrown the entirety of the Castiglione and Tory organization into an uproar. Not one head, not two, but technically 3, all snuffed out in the blink of an eye. And then there's those in this room, in this moment, feeling that burst of energy, that gust of wind ranging across this world and the next. There are those who are aware that Lucio very much is breathing. There are those aware that for the second time this night, Hestia's blade has found the heart's blood of something that should not have been able to be killed. There is Silvio, who is a little bit perplexed because that's not the way these things normally go. There's usually an exorcism of sorts. There's usually a ritual. None of those things were done. And there's the thud of the stone as it hits the block. Just a second before Sophia hits the floor. There's Miriam, knowing that there's a weight on her shoulders that will never quite be removed. And there's a sudden teary exhalation that overcomes her, almost causing her to falter as she moves into the next course of the dance. She moves into the next few steps. She almost falters, but she manages to hold strong and firm. She can feel her heart soaring, but there's something missing. There is some bit of light that does not shine on her. There is some absence that causes that small bit of teary-eyed realization to dawn.
Is Hess still feeling that lack of emotion, or is she kind of back to herself?
Oh no, she is still very much feeling that lack of emotion. She built a fort, an impenetrable fort around her heart. It's not something that easily fades away into nothingness. But the fact that for the second time this evening, she has killed something that seemed to be unkillable. For the second time, in a matter of a few blessed hours, there's something dead that should not have been able to die.
Well, now it's about to get fairly dangerous for certain people, I think. The smile that slowly crosses her face is very much the Grinch that stole Christmas cartoon. When he gets that evil plan in his head, it rolls across her lip. And she looks at the blade. Yeah. Told him he should know better, and then she slides it back into her coat and notices Lucio on the floor. Still bleeding.
On Lucio's part, since his original plan is no longer needed, which was originally to, well, it doesn't matter. He's basically just gonna, just kind of drop to his knees on the floor out of exhaustion, out of just the sheer nonsense that has happened, and also because of the blood loss. The blood loss is a major concern.
Yeah. That blood loss is very much a significant concern.
Crazy. As Miriam comes back to herself, she'll go back to what she had originally planned on doing before there was this pirate in the room, which is to try to, do some first aid and heal up Lucio.
As she watches Lucio kind of fall to his knees, it's very much predatory the way she stalks towards him, kind of smiles at him, and biting her lip. You smell incredible right now. And I'm kind of hungry.
Tess, please don't.
But why not? Just a little nibble.
If Hess starts to get too close, Miriam will reach up and flick her nose. Attending to Lucio.
She might just get her finger nipped.
Yeah, basically all the fight that Lucio had was because of adrenaline, and now it's gone. So he's on the ground, like, breathing heavily, just barely clinging on to consciousness right now.
And probably once she gets everything patched up as best as she can, she'll like offer him her wrist. Because what else can go wrong?
Oh, a lot can go wrong.
Right? Right.
Now that's unfair. He gets to drink, but I don't get to have any.
Sophia will reach out for Silvio to get help up.
There is no small amount of weight in that moment. Chips were down. Things were happening as they intended to do. And as the moment comes to a close, as the stress of that moment begins to fade away, after all that's been experienced, Miriam, as ever, tends towards the mortals, and Hestia toys with her prey, much like a cat. And Silvio, silent and quick as always, is there, his hand offered, helping her to her feet. An assistance, not doing it for her, not lifting her into his arms as if he's some brute of old, carrying her out of the factory that he's rescuing her from. No, he's there to offer his assistance. He's there to be her aid, to focus and worry after her. And here's the thing. That's all fine and good. And Miriam's efforts are surprisingly effective. And Hestia, much like the cat in this moment, knowing that she can't eat the wounded bird, but it does good to put a little bit of fear into that avian heart of her prey. There's an unrealized, unutilized facet. There, without a shadow of a doubt, was a huge outpouring of energy. Not once, not twice, 3 times in close proximity, all from one location. And as everyone gathers their wits and gathers themselves, that impossibility that they lived with and dream with and exist within, those impossible moments, they have a cost. And that cost is that not only are their eyes, ears, and various other stalkers focused on them, it is now proven that there must be something done. And with the weight of the world coming crashing down on them with all due speed, with those realizations dancing just beneath everyone's head, with that feeling of tomorrow weighing heavily on them, the idea that they may not be in existence to see it, knowing that there is a world out there that now has its eyes turned towards them. What is it that everyone is doing? Because while everyone is successful, there are several things in the moment that need to be addressed. Namely, that there have been 820 days since Lucio has eaten any actual sustenance. Yes, he's dabbled with feeding and eating food, but as a member of the Kindred, none of that does anything for him. His body didn't receive any of those minerals. His body didn't receive any of that sustenance. It was just waste, ash. Now his body demands it. His body needs it. How he has remained alive all this time is anyone's guess, but it's clear that he is in fact alive and severely malnourished and dehydrated. 820 days is a long time to not have sustenance. It's a miracle. It's impossible that his body should be operational. Yeah, it is. It is impossible that with the weight of all the wounds and scars, emotionally and spiritually, that Hestia does not sink Fang into him. But she manages to not. It is impossible that Miriam, with little or no actual medical tools, no sutures, no nothing even remotely valid in regards to applying triage, is able to stabilize him enough to realize that he is so dehydrated and malnourished. She does. And it is impossible that Sophia, after holding on to the third rail that is the stone more than once for longer than a few seconds, is still in existence. She is. So, what is the agenda with less than 40 minutes until sunrise?
Hestia, despite her lack of emotion and her wanting to toy with Lucio, was very much aware of the fact that werewolves would be coming for it, and she reminds everybody very clearly of this, looking up at Sophia. So, whatever just happened, mind you, was interesting, but not the smartest thing in the world, because now you have everybody in the city of Chicago that could feel that attention, especially the lupines. And they're probably circling in on that energy right the fuck now. So we might not want to be here when they try to get it. However you plan on doing that.
Well, since clearly, as you state, I am an idiot, perhaps you can find somewhere else to stay then. If it is unsafe here.
I didn't say idiot. You said idiot. I said it wasn't smart. There's a difference between idiot and not smart.
While they're arguing, Miriam is going to scoop Lucio up and take him to the kitchen because Sylvia lives here, so there has to be food.
But if you really want to pit Silvio against the lupine, be my guest.
What I did was worth it.
Again, not arguing with that. I didn't say it wasn't interesting. I said it was very interesting. Doesn't matter whether it was worth it or not right now. Like I said, the point is that we are very much a hotbed of attention. We are very much eyes on us. We are very much at ground zero of all the bullshit that's about to happen if we are still here when they get here. That is my point. You can be mad at how I pointed that out or not, but we need to not be here.
Where do you plan to go with the time that is left? At least with the lupines we have a chance, a slim chance, but a better chance than with the sun.
"40 minutes is no time at all. It's literally a half-hour sitcom with enough time to fix a sandwich and all of the commercials that happen on regular non-streaming TV. In fact, probably more if you watch Hulu. But it is 40 minutes. 40 minutes of direct, purposeful action can make all the difference in the world. In fact, most of the great battles throughout the centuries, where there was the last stand of brave men and women or the like, usually don't last much longer than 40 minutes. The hours-long battles that you see on TV and in movies weren't the way that things actually happened. It was clashes and skirmishes happening back to back, high intensity, small interval spread out over the course of those battles. In 4 minutes, entire platoons can be decimated. In that amount of time, battles, wars can be changed, the fate of them. In 22 minutes, if you move very slowly, you can be at the shelter. In an hour, if you want to push your luck, you can be driven to some underground parking. In 10 minutes, if you drive straight there, you could be at one of the Hakata centers of power in the area. But 20 minutes to get to the shelter includes all of the traffic stops, all of the stop signs, and not breaking any traffic law. And you all know that, unfortunate as it may be, the shelter is a center of power, but it's one that has certain protections against borders. It has certain protections against interlopers who don't know what they're doing. One of the many reasons why it's called the shelter.
As a storyteller, do we know that now that she's done with the stone, has it gone back to sleep, or is it still emitting energy right now?
Oh, and it's still emitting energy because the lid on the box hasn't been closed. And it still will be emitting energy because it's been reawoken. It's been channeled into and through. You have literally an entire, a near centuries old kindred soul that was exterminated by being absorbed into it. There is a very much you awoken things moment here. The stone, its presence, was a presence, but as you all look at where it is residing on the table in the midst of the heated exchange, that presence is slowly developing a mental personality for you all. It is a old shopkeep who knows the dirt on every member in the neighborhood, who is one of the most pragmatic individuals in our neighborhood. Good, bad, none of that matters. All that matters is the money that he is being paid. Doesn't matter how you come across it. And sometimes, in the course of doing business, one must get their hands dirty. So everyone must know what you are capable of without ever being able to prove that you were the one who did it. And that's the personality that you all feel looking at the stone. There's no actual heat coming from it, but you can feel the warmth of its personality, the warmth of its presence beginning to grow. There's nothing immediately ominous about that, except for the fact that it is a piece of masonry from the first city that is developing a presence and personality right before your undead eyes. There's nothing ominous about that after all. Everything is entitled to its right to live, right? Including inanimate objects. And while it has no eyes and it has no ears, while it is in fact still very much an inanimate object, you can feel as if it is watching and intuiting everything that you all are doing.
Wow, that's fairly creepy. Hessia looks at Sophia. Calling a ceasefire. The shelter actually has pretty good protections against the lupines due to both a treaty that they signed and some other things that are going on there. You might be able to hide the energy of the stone in amongst the energy of the crossroads itself. You can also get Lucio some food, making herself heard so that Miriam could hear her. And it would only take us 20 minutes to get there, and we would be well ensconced before sunrise. Now that it's safe for us to be in the city somewhat, we aren't being actively hunted, we can go back to the shelter. I also have books there that can help fix some of the other things that might have happened. So we should probably leave and take the stone with us. She walks towards it and very carefully covering her hand.
I'm so glad that we finally met.
Shh. Okay, this is creepy. She's gonna put her hand up in her sleeve so that she's not touching it with her skin, and put the stone back in the box and shut the box really hard.
That was very nice.
You don't have a child seat. Gotta put you in it.
The shelter could be fine, however, it depends on how quickly the word spread that you are no longer hunted. It could be unsafe for all of you.
Speaking of unsafe for all of you, in the kitchen, down the stairs, across the super maintained and well polished floor, the well waxed floor, where your footfalls sound as if you are traipsing through the halls of power itself. Miriam and Lucio settle down to the counter. And while it was clear that Silvio is a prepared individual, there's contingencies for most mundane methods of violating the peace and sanctity of where he and Sophia are. Opening the cabinets gives you a briefest of moments to ponder what goes on inside of that man's head. Because the cabinets are filled with shelf-stable food that is designed to outlast the next nuclear strike. There are actual full-fledged MREs that have fallen off of some particular truck. There are also the commercial variety, but those are actual United States Armed Force MREs on those shelves, right next to the very consumer-biased Patriot meals that are the safer, non-illegal variety of MREs. There are also shelf-stable dehydrated water, which makes no sense, but there it is. And that you could become hydrated by partaking of the dehydrated water if there was a water shortage. There are all manner of a prepper's wet dreams for surviving the next fall of civilization on those shelves, right next to the finest china, vintage, that you have ever seen. There are crystal wine glasses and goblets and plates and herringbone this and that, right next to all of the prepped meals and supplies. They're alphabetized and ordered. And you're sure that if you could figure out the system, or that you knew what was inside those shelves, even in passing, that in the dark with no power whatsoever, you would be able to find everything you need to throw a fancy dinner party for 17 or fight off zombies.
Fabulous. I will check the fridge.
If there's anything with meat in it, that would be preferred. I think I need a lot of protein right now.
Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs.
There's
Grab.
an insanity that is generally accepted as okay when dealing with those who have obsessive compulsive ideas, who need to have everything retentively in a certain space. And while it's a part of the pop culture zeitgeist that people always blame OCD, seeing it in effect and seeing it operationally so is another matter entirely. Because things are not only alphabetized on the shelves, they're alphabetized in the refrigerator and color-coded by size and date of expiration.
Excellent, I guess. I'm just basically looking for a couple of bottled waters.
Do you check
And-
E or do you check W?
I will check W.
In each of the classifications, they're broken down by the individual product as well. So quickly going through the alphabet in your head, singing the old school A, B, C, you get to W, and in that W section is broken down by manufacturer of the bottled water. You notice that there is no Aquafina, strangely enough, but there is the Aquapate and so forth and so on, all the way down to, Icelandia water.
Great. And then I'll grab some Fiji water, I guess,
It was
and set it down. It's slow. Drink it slowly, and then I will search for something that is light on the stomach, like some broth, just because he is going to have to, try not to get sick from not having eaten in so long. Maybe some, like Booster Ensure or something like that.
Lucio will try to drink slowly per Miriam's instruction. Try being the operative word.
Oh, that is an effort in and of itself. Would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your stamina plus composure? And while that roll is happening, there's no other way to really rationalize what it is that you are seeing, except for even once removing the bottle of water, you kind of feel bad because there is a clear space there now. It is, you didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing wrong with what you are doing. You are availing yourself of what is there, and you have been accepted into the hospitality of this household, yet staring at that space as you attempt to find something that is not a protein-based product, something that is a nutrient-based product. You find that there's Huel, there is Soylent, and several other liquid meal replacement products there as well. But there is still something about the fact that there's a glaring hole there of the bottle of water that you removed. It doesn't make sense that it strikes you as iffy, but it very much does. Having glimpsed the shelves and how things are stocked and maintained, that hole stands out as if you have tracked mud into your grandma's house, or that you, on a hot summer day, calling yourself, you walked into the living room that was kept for guests, and instead of sitting on the plastic covered furniture, you sat on the doily.
I'll kind of ponder it for a moment. And just move something slightly, almost artistically, and move about. Keep going.
You are sure that at any moment there is going to be some cartoonish caricature of Silvio, who stands 20 feet if he stands an inch, traipsing through the doors, yelling fee, fi, fo, fum. The moment that you do, you move into further camouflage that anything's out of place or that you've actually done anything, but it very much feels as if you are in the giant's castle preparing to make off with his heart or with his goose. And you settle on what? Soylent or Huel to give to Lucio to help with his need for refreshment and sustenance.
I will look at the ingredient list and the nutrition facts and make the decision based on that. I don't know which is better, but Miriam would.
Based on what's on the product, on the package,
Yeah.
they are they are both plant-based and surprisingly filling according to the caloric intake. They're also supposedly easily digestible, which would make it perfect. The problem being is having not tried either product personally, having had no connection with Soylent, let alone Huel. The truth of the matter is, it's a coin flip. They are meal replacement systems that are designed to give you the caloric intake of a full meal in an easily drinkable design, yet even not being a child of that time, the idea of Soylent definitely still sparks the image of Charlton Heston, arms in air, screaming as he's being carried away of what Soylent actually is.
Yeah, in that case, she would probably pick the Huel if there's like not a boost or ensure available. But yeah, grab 2 of those and sit them down slowly.
Pale due to a lack of sunshine. Weak due to God knows how many months, years, and weeks he's been without sustenance. There is still some dark, swarthy something, an ineffable otherness to Lucio. And even blood soaked as he is, there shows sign of some fortitude and strength that should not be there. He reminds you of his driver. What was that guy's name? Arsenio? Arsenio?
I never met Arsenio.
Oh, I believe he had.
No.
All right.
No. The closest I got to him was when we went to the hospital, but they weren't there.
Yes, yeah. So you don't have it at quite the same point of reference, but there is a similarity between him and Hugo when you met him to exchange for Ignacio. There is a similarity of genetics and impeccable breeding standards for the family that shows in his jawline and his cheeks and the well-coiffed brow. Still all the same. As you sit the drinks down in front of him, and we return our gaze back to the safe room upstairs, where the stone has been closed off in the only mildly, slightly porous box that has been designed for it. What is Hestia and Sophia in the midst of? Considering that Sophia is literally only on her feet due to the assistance of Silvio, that the efforts and the energies expended are slowly taking more of a toll on her visage. There's a likeness and near starry aspect to her eyes that has never been there before. Her already pale skin seems to glow with a heavy internal moonlight cast. There are signs that she has been dabbling with powers beyond anyone's ken.
Hess is not going to keep going back and forth with Sophia. She's already called a ceasefire. She's already come up with her plan to go back to the shelter and try to hide the newly growing energy that is the stone in amongst the energy of the crossroads, and hope that it's enough to keep the lupine at bay from at least the shelter. He's kind of leaving it up to Sophia if Sophia wants to go or not, but she realizes that if Sophia doesn't go, then she would probably be facing the lupines by herself, Silvio. She is going to look at Silvio and say, I know you care about her, and I know you would die for her, but if you don't leave here with her within the next 20 to 40 minutes, you're going to die, and so is she. That's all there is to it. I don't think you can fight however many lupines they're going to be sending. One killed 40 vampires without blinking, and that one was almost near dead when we got to it. So, healthy ones, I don't think you want to deal with. I'm going to go get Lucio and Miriam, and we're going to go get in the car, so I'll do what y'all want. And she goes down towards the kitchen. And as we're getting in the car, we're going back to the shelter. You coming or not?
We're coming. As Lucio finishes that sentence, he returns to chugging the hue. It was, right?
Fuel, yeah.
Fuel.
And I guess Miriam, just because she doesn't know what kind of easily digestible things are going to be at the shelter, will grab, like, I don't know, a box of it. Does it come in boxes? I don't know. I don't know.
There are several easily puncturable bags. They're semi-solid, so they hold like the old water bottles, the boxes, like the water comes in. That's kind of what they are shipped out in.
Okay. So I'll grab like 2 or 3 of those and help him out the door.
And with that being done, that process being started, standing with Silvio, knowing that there is a very real chance that there are monstrosities, monsters, creatures that defy everything and everyone, including themselves, potentially on the way to make themselves at home in her domain, at home in her presence. And with the stone being carried out with Hestia, what is it that Sophia is willing to do?
She's weighing her options because she figures that whatever's coming is coming for the stone. So if they move the stone, then it's probably less safe to be near the stone. But I guess she will go with the group because she doesn't have 100% confirmation on either theory. So kind of is what it is at this point. And worst come to worst, she can pick up the stone and fuck herself up some more. So
yes, very much so. Yeah, here's the funny thing. Experience, as it said, is the best teacher. But unfortunately, you only get good at what you do. And right now, the coterie as a whole and individually are only good at surviving things that they shouldn't survive. Not in not getting their attention, not in avoiding those situations to begin with. They are good at surviving things that no one should survive. They have outlasted a holy war that was designed to take all that they owned or were connected with from them. They've survived actual full-fledged gang wars on the streets of Chicago. They have fought various criminal organizations to a standstill. They have assaulted and killed elder kindred. They have stood face to face with Sabbat members and walked away to tell the tale. They have met ghosts, danced with them, and done far, far worse in return. They are very good at surviving things that they should not survive. And as everyone loads into the vehicle, everyone gets into the car that has become their battle van. Silvio behind the wheel, the armaments that they are aware of in the trunk, the damage that they've done to this vehicle over the last few weeks, and they make their way out into the city streets. The drive is only 20 minutes because you take the long way around and make sure that you're not followed, that no one's in your shadow, that you are honoring and obeying the traffic laws. And you all ease into the parking structure connected with the shelter. There is an unwieldiness about this moment. There is a presence that settles over the coterie. Because each of them have their own place. Each of them have various bolt holes and places that they've called their own. And it would be untrue if it was stated and said that this is anything more or anything less than their actual home. It is, even with the after effects and feel of the stone in Sophia's hand, the power herein, the quiet, ever-present power herein, it's like slipping on your favorite set of pajamas after a very long day, after a very taxing, eventful time out in the world, knowing that no, we're not going back out. There's nothing else. We don't have to run to the store. There are no more errands for the day. You can put on your pajamas, whether that is in fact pajamas or just some shorts and flip-flops or just socks or nothing at all, and make yourself amenable and comfortable to stay in. It is very much that feel that crawls over the skin as you all pull into the parking. It is very much a moment to exhale and close the doors and prepare for whatever may happen. And it's not until you guys enter the shelter proper, move through the parking structure into the building itself, the former hospital that is the basis of the shelter as well as the actual haven that you all have for the coterie, that Lucio feels it, the chill in the air, the feeling of electricity crawling over his skin, the presence of all of the spirits of the recently departed, dearly departed, nearly departed, and those who have never actually existed in this world. The weight and presence of the spiritual energies of the haven is enough to have his hair standing on end. For the first time ever, he is here in a living state. He is able to feel what that really means.
Did it always feel like this?
Feel like what?
Shocking. It's like when I walk in here like I'm being shocked. Was that always there? Did I just grow numb to it? Is no one else feeling this?
Miriam will just shrug at him and continue to help him through. She's on a time crunch. She's got to get him tucked in bed and get that back downstairs to get some probably Tums and run back upstairs to give it to him.
I forgot you're a muggle now. God, I can't get used to that. We gotta fix you. What the fuck? What happened? By the way, do we know what made you human?
The stone, apparently.
That's when kind of Hestia looks towards Sophia. What did you wish for?
It was a side effect of the undoing.
Undoing what? What did you undo?
You won't find any power within the Castigliones anymore.
Wait, that's a problem. That's a bigger problem than we thought it is.
Talking about.
See, I love you, dear. Don't get mad at the messenger, okay? You became human because you were already dead and a vampire. Right? She blinks at him. What happens to your sister? Who was wholly human and very much also his child.
I need to make a phone call. Lucio's patting around furiously for his phone right now.
Well, on the flip side, you can honestly now you can use that thing without it fucking up. But I'll be back. I'm going to go hide this thing. And she goes to lock it away, and anything she can think of that would be like coding.
Now here's the question: when you all returned to the haven itself, to the shelter itself, did you all go to Lucio's suite of rooms? Did you guys go to the meeting area? Did you go to the library? Or did you head downstairs to the crematory there?
Miriam's intention was to get Lucio tucked into bed, run downstairs to the medicine cabinet, grab some digestive aids and some aspirin, and run back upstairs to him. Because they're on a time crunch. They don't really have a whole lot of time to dick around and talk.
I guess it makes sense that they would be having this conversation in the main meeting room of the actual haven itself. Which means that's why Hester was about to head downstairs to the morgue so that she can lock the box away. But she brings that up before she goes downstairs, and then as he stops to make his phone call and watching Miriam kind of move around, he pauses and going downstairs. So yeah, they're all in the meeting room.
So patting around for your phone in the midst of all of this, there is no small amount of fear, worry, rocketing through him. It would not be unfair to accept that in that moment of being made mortal, in the midst of all of the kindred around you, that the most likely and statistically probable outcome was your immediate death. And it is not as if over the last few weeks, last few days, last few moments that you had not thought about your sister. There have been several moments where you've sent a text, or you've had a call that you attempted to make. And while she's always with her phone, it's not exactly as if you've ever had a real conversation since all of this was set into motion by Don Castiglione, because you refused to call him your father. Your father was a man who worked every day, taught you the value of what family was. Don Castiglione provided the genetic materials for you and your sister, but he was not your father. He was not your dad. He wasn't even... Hell, as far as you're aware, he didn't even pay child care for you, did he?
Or did he?
The world may never know.
Seems out of character for him.
Well, you never know. He was kind enough to send one of his ghosts to watch us while we were alone.
Repeated.
Yeah, I don't think that had good intentions.
And as you pull out your several generations old phone, the last few things that actually worked for you on your deck, on your joining, there's a weird fear that begins crawling. If this small bit of technology, despite everything that was going wrong with you, mystically and supernaturally, operated with any semblance of regularity, without failing under your touch, without failing simply by being on your person, operated with who and what you formerly were. Can it even operate now?
Lucio is going to try and turn it on and just is muttering to himself, "Please work, please work."
There's something funny, Sophia, as you and Silvio sit in the meeting room watching Lucio and his phone. It's old. There's no other way to describe it. Being aware and using modern technology as a cover, and as well, it's modern technology with the state of the world today. To do business, one must keep up. So looking at it, it is literally like looking at your grandfather attempt to utilize a VCR, well, a Betamax player, to be perfectly honest, at the time. It made no sense that someone as arcanely powerful as he was, that of all things, it was the Betamax player and Laserdisc that kept him from seeming as all powerful as he should have been. And that's what looking at Lucio turning on his phone and praying reminds you of. That disconnect with the modern world, keeping up. And as the screen begins to glow, as it starts booting up, Miriam is there. Antacids and pain pills in hand, and just in case. And Hestia is there in the doorway, sliding past, on her way to take the box downstairs. And with everyone's bated breath, pause as the screen lights up and begins to cycle through its boot up process and immediately stops. It is 31 after the hour. Let's take a quick 10 minutes, be back here at 41 after.
The anticipation.
Right. See you in a few.
Alright guys, so how we doing? Everybody back?
I'm back.
I'm here.
Back.
See,
Here.
let's blow some more shit up.
That is not entirely far from the truth, actually. As the night comes to a close, with the weight of everything resting on the phone, which booted up, started the boot up process. The screen lighting up. There's a small detectable heat as the phone heated up, a spell, a touch, just a touch enough to be noticed. And everyone who is breathing, holding that breath without realizing. Everyone who is not breathing, not even noticing, because the room is just quiet. The humans are noisy and messy and loud. The blood running through their veins and their heart pumping, their lungs moving, the squelching and squelching that goes on inside of them, all noticeable as the sounds that prey make. There's a thread connecting each of the kindred in the room to that razor's edge of their predator, noticing all of the signs that Lucio is giving off as prey, and his fixation and focus on the phone in his hand as it starts. And there's a small little bit of a vibration. There's no tone. When the screen goes through its initial boot up, there's a bright little flash of an insignia that all of us recognize as the Apple logo. And then it goes to its grayish blue. And then nothing. Sans nothing. Nothing begetting nothing. This phone has survived and dealt with an ungodly amount of water, an ungodly amount of energies bombarding it from nearly every angle, jostling and being knocked hither and thither. Its very existence, a measure of the impossible becoming real. From transformed kindred into warthogs, to crashing cars, to gunshots whizzing by to and fro, to flame and puncture and dropping and leaping and all manner of things that are supposed to destroy a phone. And it has outlasted them all. It has survived them all. Until now. And as the warmth fades from the phone, as it remains stuck in this boot up process that normally is just another facet of the day-to-day life. Unwittingly and not purposefully, completely accidentally, decodering as they are in this moment, with the residual effects of all the energies that have been bombarded around them, all the energies that have wafted through them, and all of the pressure of their continued unlives that have been in the offing these last few hours, these last few nights, these last few weeks. They incidentally and accidentally hold a moment of silence for the dearly departed.
I've already headed downstairs. I think I don't know what happened after that, but as sure somebody else could maybe give him a phone.
Sophia will nod at Silvio, assuming that he has a phone.
He frowns for a hot micro nanosecond. Sure thing. Reaches into his left jacket, breast pocket, and retrieves one of the burners and moves to Lucio, who is still staring at the phone screen. There's the last sign of its existence. And he sits the phone down, easily within reach, but without quite breaking the line of sight between Lucio and his phone.
If he breaks your phone, I will buy you a new.
Thank you. Lucio will take the burner phone and will try and dial his sister's number.
Never have so many people and so many kindred had so much and so little weighing on a phone call. Miriam doesn't really have that strong of a connection to Stella or Faye. And Sophia knows them in passing, but again, knows more of them than actually having known them. And Hestia, for quite a long time, considered them the privileged youth of today. They were active, they were passionate, but keeping them focused and not doing other things while they were at work was, it's par for course. They're passionate about helping, and they're willing to put their bodies and their time and their minds online and at risk, but they did spend a lot of time talking, chit-chatting, or texting, or whatever it was that they were doing on their phones and at all hours of their shift when they were present, making friends and doing everything except for actually what was needed, which is their body and their time. And they were easily distracted, but that's the thing with the youth of today. They are all easily distracted, or at least that's what, crotchety old kindred and elders constantly think. Their need to be doing several things at once seem to be chaos, seem to be very much indicative of the inability of today's youth to focus. And Silvio, they were tools, they were weaknesses, they are weaknesses. It's the nature of things. After living a life where exploiting enemies' weaknesses, it's hard to see anything that does not directly profit one as anything but. Yet, thoughts and prayers are on Lucio's shoulder as everyone focuses in on him and the burner phone in his hand. Having come down from the realities of their now dearly, or his near dearly departed friend that had been with him through thick and thin, death and resurrection, time and time again. But his thoughts are for Stella. Brave Stella, who even as a child was far braver than she should have been, even while dealing with crippling fear of the unknown world around them. And as the phone rings, the anxiety that it ratchets up, the sheer frustration at not hearing her voice, the sheer weight of knowing that what he was doing was needed and necessary, because if there was a hunt for all that he was, that death was literally a breath away, she needed to remain safe. So he had not reached out, he had not gone looking for her, he had not dug her out of whatever hole the Castigliones had buried her in, because it was safer for her having distance. And now that distance and that isolation and that time away very much could be the reason why she no longer exists. So as he hears her voice, and it takes him a couple of seconds to realize that it is in fact her voicemail, what is going through Lucio and the coteries' mind?
Lucio is beside himself with worry, knowing all the things, all the possible things that could have gone wrong. in his mind, he's just imagining every possible worst case scenario. And he feels powerless to stop it since he is so far away right now.
Does Lucio attempt to maintain his stoic, brave pace?
He does, yes.
Nice. He's so Has to go ahead and roll your composure and either performance or persuasion. And anyone else who is attempting to see past the mask that he is erecting right in front of you, building himself up brick by brick in this moment, to be so kind as go ahead and roll your wits and either subterfuge or wits and performance versus his result of 4 successes. A tie will give you an inclination that is not exactly as it seems. 1 higher means that you are able to see through the erected mass that he is constructing right in front of you.
Thirst is slow tonight.
What about insight?
Insight could work. It would just be a guess. You wouldn't know exactly why. It would be more something's not quite right. Not that he's purposefully hiding.
I think Hess is going to skip this roll, seeing as how she still hasn't knocked down those non-emotional walls yet.
Thirst is in fact very slow.
Did I break it?
Thirst is very, very slow. It does not want to. Why try that one while we wait on Thirst?
Missed a thing.
Yeah. Alright. So, Sophia, the inner workings of the human mind, the heart, have always been a thing to be manipulated, not necessarily understood. And you are aware that, well, there should be a response, but not having that response doesn't mean that things aren't the way that they should be, which means maybe there's a chance that Lucio is really the cold monster that deserves being a member of the Hakata. That facade, that face that he is holding, that presence that he has about himself through the thick and thin, even though you just saw a moment earlier there was a semblance of care or some nervous energy there, it's all gone. He has found very much the core of what it means to understand the true infinite that is life, death, all of those other various words that mean absolutely nothing because they are only part of the infinite line. They're just segments of it. And being trapped into such a small window And limiting yourself like that is a good way to ensure that there's nothing for you save being used by others. Now, in this moment, he is displaying that perhaps he doesn't need to be used by others. Perhaps there is something there, a diamond underneath all of that coal that could be used. Well, for Miriam, you've seen trauma. You've seen the extents that humans, living and dead, will go to avoid pain. And that's what you see in Lucian. It's as if he understands the bad news and is doing everything he can to not make it a reality in this moment for himself. And looking on this moment as the phone call goes to voicemail, you can hear Stella's voice on the other end. There's but one out for you, Lucio. You have your opportunity. You have your chance to undo the past 2 years of undeath. The moment that your coterie dies for the day, you can head up to the room, and 5 stories is enough to ensure that you don't wake up again. If your sister is gone, if your parents don't recognize you, if the monster that provided the genetic material for your existence is no longer in existence, there's an easy way out. The pain doesn't have to persist. And you've never been a crier, not for anyone to see. You've always had to put on a brave face, as your father did, as your mother did. You all didn't let your abject poverty stop you from aspiring. And your situation, rubbing elbows with the criminal element and the worst element of humankind, didn't stop you all from being the best versions of yourself that you were able to. Didn't stop your father from going to work every day. Didn't stop your mom from going to work every day. Didn't stop you with all of the failures that happened, because the world is a really shitty place, from happening. Yet, after all of the experiences of these last 2 years, after all that you have dealt with, know that there's no other way that you can honestly look at it except for that you failed. There's a simple solution. And there's one that none of these kindred spirits can do anything about. The sun is the ruler of them all, and you have the opportunity to visit it once more. Head up to the room. Quiet. Say goodbye. Speaking of quietly saying goodbye, you all feel the pull of the sun. It's not as if, 15 minutes is all the time in the world. Well, 18, or give or take a few minutes, is all the time in the world. And it goes far too quickly. Time keeps eating away your present, depositing you in the future of your pain in the moment. And right now, the pull of the sun is nearly absolute. You can feel that outside of this windowless room, that the world is beginning to wake into the grace and touch of the sun. You know that in the next few moments, you will die where you are. The switch will be thrown, and you will cease to be temporarily in that moment. Yeah, that's all it is for you. The day is nothing more than a moment you don't get to experience. In fact, you don't even miss that time. The switch is thrown. You cease to be. The world goes to nothingness, and then you're back. You are once more resurrected in your ambulatory corpses that is now who and what you are. Resurrected for another night to reap and spread what it is you have all over. So, as the morning threatens, what is it that you all are doing?
Miriam, in her guise of Mother Hen, will give Lucio's shoulder a gentle squeeze and kind of usher him up to bed.
Lucio will follow along for now.
Has Hestia tucked the box away downstairs and come back up?
Yes, you said you wanted to put it where again?
It was going to be put in the box that we were originally made for it, and then inside of one of the vaults downstairs with a lock on it. The rolly vaults for the bodies, with a lock on it.
Okay. Yeah, that's on the three flights of stairs through the maze that is the actual haven itself. Its natural security aspects of purposely being modified to be confusing to others. Nothing that remotely bothers you. You're home again. You can navigate the space with your eyes closed. You can avoid all the last few traps from that Sorochi left in place to protect the place without even thinking about it. You don't think about it because you know where they are, like you know the few blemishes on your own skin from your living days. So there and back, jiggity jig, back quicker than a wink. Not a problem.
As sees Miriam kind of ushering Lucio away towards his room, she calls behind him. Well, there's one good thing about you being alive. You can do stuff during the day that we can't. Maybe you can go find your sister during the day. Wherever she is. Take the car or something, I guess. And then,
If I didn't know any better, I'd think you were reading my mind.
no, it's just the fact that something you could do. Go visit your sister while you're alive. If I had a day as a human, it would suck. It really would suck. But I would go visit people that I can't when I'm me. That's all there is to it. Kind of shrugs and then heads towards her room. She very much meant that, by the way. She would go visit her ex that is supposed to be her quote-unquote dad.
Miriam will essentially tuck him in, check over the bandages, make sure nothing's, wrong with those. And, Lucio, don't do anything stupid. And don't think you're off the hook for the damage to my wall. Pat him on the head and go to her own room.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Sorry.
And as they go, the three of them head off to make Lucio at home in his suite of rooms. Because that's literally what it is. The wings of the hospital. It's the bones that form up the shelter's haven. He has a suite of rooms. He doesn't have a room or it's a suite of hospital rooms that have been walls knocked down and redesigned so that there's the actual nearly full-fledged apartment space for the members that were formerly the coterie. That includes all of the members formerly part of the coterie had been given space and areas that were made their own. So while the hospital, from the outward appearances, the empty, abandoned space behind the shelter is in fact abandoned and boarded off so that you can't access it from the shelter as far as anyone else is concerned, there are spaces of warmth, odd though that sounds, where the former coterie members lived, breathed, and continued their semblance of life. Hestia and Lucio having populated a third floor. Where does that leave Sophia, Sylvia, and Miriam to a light?
I thought the last time they stayed over that we would have like given them, not assigned them rooms, but given them places that they could stay once it was more clear that they were moving in.
I remember a big discussion about that when the map was pinned.
I don't know where Sophia would go. She's never bunked here before, so.
Weird, I could have sworn it was, but she probably would have made
What are you doing?
Roshi's room available.
Apparently, that link I don't have access to.
And
It's the one that's in the debriefing, right? The vertical map of the Haven.
yes, that has been modified a little bit. Let's see if I can. I don't know why that's not showing for you, but let's do this. Sketch. We'll figure out the details as to why it's not doing what it's supposed to do in a moment.
Yeah, it doesn't work for me either.
That is in fact odd. Let's take a look. As soon as we have the opportunity, I will see why that is not acting the way that it should.
I think that when we first talked about it, Simon's room was the one that you gave Miriam, or it might have been Clyde's.
Okay. So, off they go to their various spaces. Finding a space for themselves to die for the day. And one of the things that helps them maintain humanity is the evening oblations. Now, a kindred dies for the day, so they don't need to hop in the shower, scrub their face, wash their hair, do any of those many things that we do before going to bed to keep them living and breathing. However, it helps them maintain the semblance of humanity. So are there any particular evening oblations that are easy to do when the sun is rising moment by moment, lighting the world on fire?
at this point, probably not just, getting ready for bed and just dying. Anything that she needs to take care of hygiene-wise, it can wait until she wakes up. It's not a huge issue.
Okay. The reason why I ask is because they're dying for the day. It's one of the things that connects them with their life. So having a space or claiming a space is very important. One of the few things that we do unconsciously. It's like the dog spins around several times before finding the most comfortable place for them. It's how, when comfortable, they'll expose their soft underbellies because they know that they're safe. Those little small things that the living do, that the dead approximate, very important. Because those sounds, as they die away, and as the kindred do much the same, provides Lucio with the opportunity to be unfettered, unhindered by anyone's decision to save his own. And while the truth that sits there before him is apparent, one of the foundations of his being, protecting his family, having not been met, and much like him, having died all those years ago now, it's been 2 full years of death, an unending, ever-shifting battle for his continued existence, even though his body was in fact dead. And in those 2 years, he has drunken deeply of the richest vintage of all time. He has delved into things that don't exist for the average person or for the average kindred. He's come face to face with things that have destroyed entire kindred civilizations. And he's come face to face with the very real understanding that this world of ours, this realm that we believe is all that there is but one tiny drop of water in an ocean, and is 1 grain of sand in the sea that is the desert. His mind has been expanded, shrunk, twisted, turned into putty, and returned to him in a semi-workable state. And through it all, he has managed to keep his family safe. He has managed to keep Stella and Faye and his mother and father and his friends and associates from the greatest harms possible, including that unending, undying thirst that exists within him. Yet in the blink of an eye, it is all gone. His mother and father don't remember him, or that he even exists. Faye and Stella, God knows what could have happened. Be sure that Faye may be mostly unharmed with Stella's passing. After all, she would still be alive to mourn. But he is sure that there was no way that would not have been traumatic. Watching Stella simply cease. Or worse yet, something graphic, tragic, and violent happening all at once. There's a need to at least go and identify the body. There's a need to pray that he is wrong, that his approximation of what the stone did wasn't exactly what happened. There's a need to know, an overwhelming, all-encompassing need to know. But if he's not truly alive, there's a chance that the sun very well will end him. And while the switch in his head wasn't thrown, there's no way to verify that without risking it. Is he truly alive? Is he still kindred? Is he some middling, undecided mixture of the two? Like Arsenio, but more so, or less so. The wounds, bandage, and all of the blood that he lost technically should have been enough to kill him again, but yet he's still here. Miriam triaged him well enough that there no further soaking of the bandages, but they are in fact quite so. He is in fact still a relatively bloody mess, and the scent of iron is very, very rich in his nose. So how does he take to the streets to go see and find his sister or his sister's corpse?
So after Lucio changes his bandages, he's going to put on his jacket, grab whatever items he needs, and he's going to first test his reaction to the sun by opening up the curtains of his window just enough so that the light touches his hand.
Very, very brave and very, very well intentioned. He moves the curtains for his window, and the ghosts of the past rear their ugly head. Because Sorochi was nothing if not fairly thorough in his attempting to protect the coterie. All the nameless mini booby traps throughout the haven, as well as all of the many light obstructed facets of the shelter itself. All of the windows bordering all of the suites have been sealed both internally as well as externally.
Oh, shit. In that case, there's only one way to test it. He's gonna head outside.
Down through the morgue or out through the shelter itself?
Where did we leave the car?
The car's in the parking garage, so you can make that through the second floor, the second story exit. Or you can make it down through the shelter and out into the parking garage around the side of the building. Or you can exit through the morgue, which has a long dark tunnel which will provide you. How are you going about it?
He'll go through the morgue because he is still beaten up and bloody, so he doesn't want to raise questions with everyone else.
Not raising questions is a very good thing, especially considering how tired he is. It's almost as if he hasn't truly slept for 2 years. The adrenaline is pumping, the emotions are high, and he takes one step after the next. To be so kind as to roll your resolve plus composure DC 3. As you exit out the morgue door in complete darkness, and you know that the fact that you are able to see a portion of the ground is because of the residual radiation of light. Small though it is, and barely piercing the darkness that is all around you, you know that if you head up that tunnel, that you will potentially burst into flame. That all that you are will be washed in nothing but pain, torment, as you take a step towards the light, swallowing back all of that instinctual fear. As your foot does not immediately burst into flame, there's no conflagration as you make one step after another up the long, winding tunnel into the bright rays of the sun's rise. There's a growing sense of relief. There's a growing sense of this may work out. There is a growing sense of the scent of bacon slowly broiling in the oven. Not quite to the point where the oil is popping, sizzling, but there is that scent and that hint of something slowly burning, something slowly cooking. There's the feel of heat on your skin that you have not felt in over 2 years. There's the small buildup of sweat that is nearly crimson racing across your brow as you take one hand to wipe it away. You initially chalk it up to fear, flop sweat. But no, this is sweat from exertion, and it is brightly tinged red. From the passerby, anyone who saw you in this moment would believe that you are in fact bleeding from your pores. You pause to take a breath and realize you have to struggle to do so, because your lungs aren't expanding on their own. Would you like to spend a vitae to rouse the blood?
Oh, well, this was short-lived. Yes.
And instinctually, you tap into the strength of your beast. You tap into that wily predator that will do anything to survive, including all its own arm off to escape pain. And it answers. And the quiet that you had dissipates. The calm you had is gone. There is a presence and a voice at the base of your skull that seemed to have always been there for the last 2 years. The only time where it is not felt, where it is not heard, is when you have ended another entity's existence permanently. And it's amazing the things that you become adapted to. It's amazing what the body adjusts to and what the mind is willing to accept. And the presence of the beast is one of those very odd things that should make everything far less palatable. But in this moment, standing in the bright rays of the sun, with your skin boiling, its presence gives you strength enough to withstand all of that heat in this moment. And the only thing that it offers, the only thing that it charges, is that you must end something. Blood will make it palatable. It'll give you the strength you need. You need to end something. And with Lucio standing in the rays of the sun, at the mouth of the hidden access to the coteries morgue and the one of the many secret egresses into the haven as a whole, we draw to a close, with him not immediately and instantaneously bursting into flame. We pull away and turn our gaze to the far south suburbs of Chicago, where several other kindred are dying for the day, inside of a hole in the wall, a sports club that could does double as everything and anything but a once hallowed ground of Chicago's criminal past. A speakeasy that even to this day doesn't speak. And while everyone is existing there, is rarely anything and everything but easy. Thank you all for a lovely season and a great episode. And I'll see you guys next week in season 16. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.